Church. It's a joy to be here again. It's been a long time since we were here, but in 1991, I believe it was, a group of people from this association came to Wellmer, Minnesota, and helped do the finish work on the building we were building, first unit building, in Candiu High County. I was told that Brother Danny Knight might be here today. Danny, are you here? All right, Danny was the director of missions then, and he still lives in the area, as many of you probably know. And led a team and did all the finish work on that building, and that church is still going and still functioning. It is literally on the western edge of the work that's there in Minnesota. A lot of distance between Wellmer and the Dakotas that have no Southern Baptist work at all. So you helped us put a church on the edge of that territory we're trying to push into and get new churches started in that area. Now, is this on? Are we good?
We're not good.
Can you move it over? Can you move it over onto your tithing?
I can learn on my lower lip. All right, now maybe that'll help some right there. Otherwise, I'll just talk louder. Brother Kenny's going to give me a mic to hold there.
We're good to go.
Well, I have some pictures I want to show you, but before I do that, I want to thank this church for being faithful. Lord forbid that I would ever go and tell about the mission cause without pausing for a few minutes to say thank you to our faithful, continuously supporting churches across this great Southern Baptist Convention. I want to say thank you not only for your work here in this town. This is your Jerusalem, and by who's here today, I can see that you've been busy trying to reach people and penetrate families, find folks who are lost and get them found, who are unaffiliated with Jesus and now are a personal friend with Jesus. You've been faithful to the mission cause here in Buin, and thank you for doing that. Don't ever forget to try to reach your neighbors, your family, those who live up and down your street and on your road. That's a critical concern. But I want to thank you also for helping in this association to be faithful. I'm a director of missions, and I know what it is when I have churches that are kind of out there on the fringe, and they don't care if you're alive or not. And they just kind of operate and do their own thing, and I'm sure our good DOM, he's kind of got a smile on his face. He's probably thinking of the church right now. So I want to thank you for being in the middle of what this association is doing, trying to work together to strengthen everyone. We find strength in numbers, and that's not only in a church congregation. That's literally an association word. Sometimes you're in a little valley of trouble, and some of the other stronger churches support you in prayer and in ways, and when they're in a little dip, you support them. And when you join your hearts together, you can do great things like coming to Minnesota and helping us build a building. So God bless you for that. I also want to thank you for being faithful to the cooperative program and to your Lottie Moon offering, your Annie Armstrong offering, your state mission offering, and all of the other missionary concerns that you have. Do you realize that, and let me say this first, every year we bring our numbers back to zero. And we don't reflect what you did last year on this year's number, but that's just the way we do it. Your cooperative program giving is 1 year, 12 months. Do you realize how huge of an amount of emphasis you've had in the world if you wouldn't do that? You would have a different problem, and it would be called pride. If you added all of the years that you've existed together of how much money through the cooperative program you put into world missions, it would be an impressive number. If you added all of the years of Lottie Moon together, and just didn't register 1 year at a time. If you added all of those years together, what God has enabled you to do would be astounding. And if you added together everything that this church did since somebody had a dream of starting this congregation, you would be amazed and you would want to stand and sing the doxology or something. I would pray you wouldn't go to arrogance and pride and in those kinds of negative things, but you would say, Lord, thank you for giving us the opportunity to make a major investment in missions around the world. So I want to say thank you, and God bless you. Now, folks, this is no time to give up and to quit and to pull back. We still got a tremendous amount of work to do, not only here, but in Minnesota and literally to the ends of the world. We must continue to lean into the work and to see that get done. The work here in Guin is needy. You still have lost people here. I ate at a restaurant this morning. I'll guarantee you still have lost people here in Guin that you need to reach. And in this county and in this state, and across the nation, we still have a tremendous job to do. So I want to brag on you for what you've done, but I want to encourage you not to quit, not to back up, not to bow, not to surrender, but to take a deep breath and move forward in the challenge that God has given to us as Southern Baptists to reach everyone we can until the time is done. So God bless you, and I pray that you'd continue to move forward. The work in Minnesota, I'm going to get to my pictures in a minute, is a tremendous opportunity before us. The Northwoods Baptist Association, where I'm the Director of Missions, and they also call me now a Church Planting Catalyst. So I'm the DOM CPC in Northwoods Baptist Association. We have 36 counties in Northwoods Association. Brother Missionary, my furthest two pastors are a 7-hour drive apart. If we do an association meeting and put it right in the middle, those guys will have to drive 3.5, 4 hours to get to that meeting. And then, of course, you have to drive that to get back home. So when you try to do associational work and do a meeting, you have hotel rooms and a tremendous amount of gas mileage. A lot of our guys are challenged financially, and if they're coming to a meeting, I've got to help them with gas and sometimes overnight hotel. And a lot of them are bivocational, and sometimes I have to pay them what they would earn on the job because they can't afford to miss a day's work just to come to an association meeting. But to do somewhat of a framework of association work, we do those kinds of things just to keep the guys together, because if you isolate them, eventually they're going to get discouraged, and discouragement goes in bad directions. So literally, we do what we have to get the guys together. So thank you for your work. I have 36 counties, and 19 of them have no Southern Baptist work in them at all. Now that may be strange for you here in Alabama to think there's a whole county without a Southern Baptist church. But we have 19 counties in Northwoods that we've not penetrated yet. I've had a lifetime goal of trying to get a church in every county in Northwoods, and I'm not there yet. And I'm 64 and a half, and I don't know that I'm going to get there. But when I leave this world, I'll still be trying to get a church in every one of those county seat towns, so at least every county has one Southern Baptist church in it. In Minnesota, we have one Southern Baptist church for every 87,621 people. Now that may surprise you. I don't have the statistic on Alabama, but I do know Mississippi has one church for every 1,385. We have one church for every 87,000 plus people in Minnesota. So we still desperately need your help. So God bless you for what you've done. Thank you for your partnership. And please, let's continue to work together to get the work done. Now let's look at some pictures. Here are some of our pastors. Gene and Gloria Beckstrom. Gene is 86 or 85. His dad thinks he's 86. His mother thought he was a year younger. When he was born, they didn't write things down. They just kind of remembered it. They got a little foggy with him. Gene has been serving in our area for a long time. And I just tell him, you're just old as dirt. I don't know how old you are. And his wife has had tremendous health problems this last year. Had to amputate one leg at the knee. And she's had just a lot of health problems. he still oversees 2 of our works there, and Steve and Judy Arios have just come into the work. So Gene is kind of the introducing pastor to them to the work, doing a lot of discipleship with him and helping them to understand what it is to be a Southern Baptist. Two couples in our area, just stalwarts of our work. Here is the pastor up in the northwest corner of Minnesota. I tease people, if you go past where C.W. and Claudia serve, you'll be in Canada, because they're only about 14 miles from the Canadian border. If you look at a map of Minnesota, you will recognize that Dakota is over here on the side, and Wisconsin is over on this side, and Canada is up here. So if you go way up here by this marker, which is a mark for a new church that we're starting, is where C.W. lives. And he's from Louisiana, but he served there for over 20 years as a county agent. And we've got a pastor now for the last church that he helped to start. So he's going to start a cowboy church up in this northwest corner of Minnesota. His son is the farrier up in that area, so he knows everybody with horses in a 4-county area. So we literally have a pastor, and we have a prospect list of all the prospects in a 4-county area. I'll just quickly tell you this story. I was sharing in the Sunday school class that in all the years that I've worked, I've never had a church call me and say that we would like to come and do a horse camp. And that's where you bring horses in and you teach children how to behave around the children, how to put a bridle on, how to put a saddle on, and they make spiritual applications to all of those things. Isn't it a coincidence that God calls us to start a cowboy church, and then out of the clear blue sky, someone calls and says, I want to do a horse camp? Sounds to me like God's involved in that. So please pray for Claudia. She's had cancer. She's had all kinds of health problems herself. These are retired people who refuse to quit. And even though now they've started a church, got it up running, they're going to, and they're right at that 70 area in their life, they're starting another church, a cowboy church at this time. Hopefully his son will become the pastor of that. So C.W. and Claudia Neidbart, please pray for them. Doug and Kay Clark are the pastor and wife that took over where C.W. started, up in Badger. And literally up in Badger, it's way north on the Canadian border. And by the way, today they have a ripper snowstorm going through. And a couple of places called me and said, we're going to have to cancel church today simply because of snowstorm coming through. It will get, the first week that they moved there, they had a low temperature of 43 below zero. And when you put a wind on that, it's intense living in that area. It takes about 30% of your time just to exist in that cold weather. You just can't go outside and start your car and drive off. There's a lot of things you got to do just to live in that kind of climate. But Doug and Kay, it was funny, we went up to have lunch with them not too long ago, and I said, now how is the house you're living in? How is it comfortable? They said, yeah, it's comfortable. It's kind of small. But and we need to replace the refrigerator. I said, well, what's up with the refrigerator? They said, well, the door is, you kind of have to help the door close because it's rusted a little bit. Well, it wasn't rusted a little bit. The one hinge was rusted off. So they had to kind of help that door go shut and get it locked. And it made a lot of noise. And because of helping churches like you, Faye and I were able to go to the appliance store and we bought them a brand new refrigerator that day. Had it delivered the next day. And I told them it's hard enough serving in some of these pioneer areas that you don't have to fight with your refrigerator. Amen? Amen. I mean, thank you for your helping hand in what we do in those areas sometimes. And the church doesn't have the money to do that. It's a brand new congregation and they're trying to deal with their church building and getting the programs going. And the director of missions comes in sometimes and he has to do things like that. Boy, was she happy to have that new refrigerator. I just took her in and says, just pick the one out you like. And I had to bring her up a grade or two because she was down there in those apartment-sized ones going in. And I said, no, we're not putting that in there. You need to get over here on this row of refrigerator. So praise the Lord for our good workers ready to go. David and Sally. David is a retired Navy man, worked on submarines. He has 4 master's degrees and 2 doctorate degrees, and teaches a lot in the college situation there in Bemidji. David, he said, I asked him, how did you get all that education? He says, well, we would be hiding under the polar cap in a nuclear submarine and had to be totally silent, and I took college courses with me, and they'd stay under there for 6 months. You don't know where our submarines are today. They're hiding where nobody except a few people know where they are. So he got all his education underwater. And so now he even teaches and makes a living doing that. He's serving in Bemidji, Minnesota, which is right up in this area. Here's an interim pastor that I used to help in one of our churches that had, at one time they had 4 people coming. It had dropped down, trouble hit the church, and they dropped down to 4 people coming. We'd gotten it up to about a dozen coming when Jim and Connie came in. They served there about a year, got it up running about 30, and now we have a pastor in that congregation. So praise the Lord. He's in the south now, but in the summer he'll come back, and I'll have a place for him to work this coming year. They'll have to go quick. I talked too long about all these people. Where Jim and Connie served, we have a brand new pastor. We didn't have a picture of them. Terry and Jan Stunbowl have come into that work, and they're picking it up and going forward. Here is the Eagle's Nest Baptist Church, and that church is located right here, pretty much in the center of the association. This was started 4 years ago. The Selma Association from Selma, Alabama came with a crew and helped build that, and I think people from Northside were on that crew. And this is where we bought 5 acres of land about 6 years ago, maybe more than that. And then a church planter came, we started the congregation, and we built a tremendous building. The codes, it's kind of a resorty area, and the codes are very strong. So even with all volunteer labor and the building paid for, it cost us $250,000 to build that building. And now we got to pay for it. So Faye and I serve there as pastor. We have a special arrangement with the North American Mission Board that they permit us to pastor that church and be employed by the North American Mission Board if we start one new church every year. So you need to pray for Eagle's Nest and their old pastor. That they will be able to stretch out and start one new congregation every year. And in the year 2013, we're going to Wadena, Minnesota, and start the 13th church in Wadena, and the 14th church will be in Alexandria, further southwest in the association. So literally, we have about 60 people that come, and we're fighting that debt on our building, and a lot of concerns going on there. But literally, they're going to start a brand new congregation every year. They're committed to doing that. So praise God for that. Randy and Jenny Westerberg, Randy is a chiropractor. And had a church, about 20, 30 people coming. And he took that church, about 200 coming now. And he's in the far south of the association. And there's enough money in the church now for him to go full time. But he says, I want to stay involved in my chiropractic business because I'm winning a lot of these people to the Lord in my business. They come with their body hurting, and as I witness to them, I'm able to lead them to Christ and tell them how Jesus can help them. So literally, he took the money he could take at being a full-time pastor, and they're using that now to hire a youth worker and a music pastor to come into the church. So he has a staff of all part-time people, and it's a tremendous ministry. They built a building 4 years ago, and this summer they're going to add on to it again because they're out of space. So this is one of our bright success blessing stories that we have, Randy and Jenny Westerberg. By the way, he also has a PhD in counseling. So a very well-trained, educated man. Charlie and Molly, their email address is Molly Mouse. Sometimes he will call her Molly Mouse. But anyway, Charlie is a retired, another supply pastor. He's got some severe heart problems and difficulties, but loves the Lord and lives in that area. A great blessing to us, Charlie and Molly. This is a brand new pastor in Calvary Pines Baptist Church. And Gaylord comes to us from a different denominational background, still loves the Lord, a great servant, and yet as DOM now, I have the challenge of introducing him to Southern Baptist life. So you have the church that really knows more about Southern Baptist than the pastor does. But yet, we have a hard time getting Southern Baptist pastors to move there. It's almost like inviting lay people to come and start a house church in one of these open counties. Have you ever thought about leaving Alabama and come to a country that goes 30 below zero in the wintertime? It's very hard to get the southern strength to move to the area. The teams come in June and July. Only your pastor came to War Road, Minnesota in the middle of the winter. Look at him shake his head saying, I'll never do that again. Literally, Brother Kenny came to Badger, Minnesota in the middle of the winter to help us with one of our church buildings in crises. It is extremely hard. So literally, we're bringing men in from other denominations that love the Lord and are willing to learn what it is to be a Southern Baptist. And that's part of my job, is to help them. Great servant. Pat and Ruby are way out here in Crookston, very close to North Dakota. They have a business out there, and when they built a new building for their business, they just built a room in there. They call it the chapel, and that's where they have church. It was such a joy the last few days. My wife and I were able to visit with Ruby, and she was just exploding with joy because she was able to lead one of her lady friends to the Lord Jesus Christ. And that is a high mark for us. Sometimes we just get tired of working on buildings and get tired of working on all kinds of struggles. And when we get to lead somebody to Jesus, boy, that's really something very special. Pat and Ruby Brzezinski. Here's an interesting story. Jonathan accepted the Lord in our summer camp in the 4th grade. This will tell you how long I've served in the area. He was in the youth group when I pastored in the Northern City Baptist Church in Duluth, Minnesota, way over on the east side of the association. Went off to Hannibal LaGrange and got his education, found a wife, and has moved back to the area with 4 daughters. How do you like that? And I tell him, said, if you get a dog, make sure it's a male. You need company in the house. But anyway, he serves where he was in the youth group at Northern City Baptist Church, and is the sponsoring church for the work in Superior, Wisconsin, and now the new church in West Duluth. So literally, he has a congregation that desperately needs to grow. There's only 20, 25 people in the church, and he's sponsoring a new work in Superior, Wisconsin, and this year moving in, sponsoring the work in West Duluth. So here you have a struggling church trying to start 2 new congregations. So we really put a tremendous load on these guys. It's fun, though, to have, as DOM, a guy that you helped come to Christ, sent him off to school, and now have come back to the area and serving as one of our pastors. John is a real blessing. Bob, Diane, both Dahlberg are up in Ely, Minnesota, and there's no road that goes to Canada from Ely because of the Boundary Waters Canoe area. Very woodsy, very touristy, very, very much up north. I have a lay person in that church named Larry Reedy. You may know Larry. And Larry totaled his car out the other day. A moose ran into the side of it. How do you like that? You don't want to tangle with a moose on the road. I have pictures of a moose that was standing in the road, and I drove by it, and sitting in my car, I could look underneath the moose. They are literally that tall, that huge of an animal. I have a friend that hit one with an 18-wheeler and totaled the cab on that 18-wheeler on a cow moose he hit on the North Shore Drive. But anyway, they live way up there in the area. Now, my wife has never seen a moose. And she stayed home 2 of the trips that I was on, and I seen a moose on both of those trips. I don't teach her to stay home. But anyway, it's way, way up north. Great blessing to have those people. Randall and Tracy are in Grand Rapids. Grand Rapids, when they took it, was 12 people about 6 years ago. They built it up to about 50 people. And last year, we added on to that building. Selma Association came and helped us with that. And a beautiful church building. They're running anywhere between 50 and 60 people, except this morning. Attendance is way down this morning because of the snowstorm. Randall and Tracy. Bonnie Lee buried his wife about 3 years ago. He's been the pastor of the Hill City Baptist Church for 30 years. He was the original pastor. He's a Vietnam vet, was sprayed with Agent Orange, has all kinds of heart problems, lung problems. He has total disability. I said, Bonnie, are you going to be able to keep preaching? He said, I'll preach till I die. And he said, I plan to die right here. So Bonnie Lee, great friend, same age as I am, just a dear brother. Don and Sam Clark are on the Canadian border in International Falls. Now, some of you have heard of International Falls because it's reported as the coldest place in America many times. I say to people the Chamber of Commerce has a stiff job there because in the winter it's the coldest place, and in the summer the mosquitoes are as big as hummingbirds. But he's a retired Navy guy, and he teases me about being close to retirement. He says, Bob, you need to find a place to preach your days out. He said, that's what I'm doing in International Falls. He'll be there till he dies. By the way, the church pays him $300 a month. It's a small church. The town is struggling, and it's a very challenged place, but he serves there like he's on top of the world, and just takes care of that congregation. And I have to go quicker. Scott and Stacy are church planters in North Branch, way down here by Minneapolis. Church is 3 years old. They have about 30 people coming. He works all night long in a place and then sleeps a little bit and does his church work. These guys pay a terrible price to start a church. They literally are my heroes. Ken and Naomi have been 5 years in Superior, Wisconsin. Struggling there. Years ago we had a building and an arson burned it down, and it was so devastating to the congregation they quit. So the association owns the land and have fire damage money in the bank. Once we can get this congregation built back up again, we do have the land and we'll be able to build a building on that property. So we're still struggling to get that core group of people. You can build too soon. You literally, many young churches say, we want to build immediately. And many times then the building becomes the focus, and you've got to keep people as the focus. So Ken and Naomi Anders are serving as church planters there in Superior, Wisconsin. I'm sorry, choir, you're not getting to see the map at all. Anyway, Jim and Donna Butler are in West Side. Jim again is a retired guy. They're just my heroes. They amaze me on the dedication and commitment that they have to do the work. Camp Jim is our summer camp as the association. We do a tremendous amount of work every year to make camp a great blessing to our kids. God forbid that we don't reach our own children. And we do camp, let's see that next picture. I think there's another one there. Every year we take about 100 kids to camp, and I raise enough money to where I can offset the cost of camp to where we take all our kids to camp for $100. We have a lot of lost kids with lost parents, and those lost parents aren't going to spend much more than $100 to send their children to camp. So literally, I raise enough money to where I can put $2,500 on the cost of camp, and that lowers the registration cost. In fact, last year, Faye and I took money that we got from folks. It's not our money, it's money you invest into us, and we put 10 scholarships out to where a child that does not attend our church or any church and comes to camp for $25. We were pretty well assured most of those kids were going to be lost kids. And when camp was all over, out of those about 80 kids that we had at camp, we had led 22 of those kids to Christ. We take all their cameras away, all their iPhones away. We take their iPods, their computers. Don't bring any of that to camp. Bring a Bible and a notepad and a pencil. That's all you need. And we literally take them for 5 days, one of the best camps you'll ever find. And God has honored us through those years of a tremendous camping experience. So I just want to pause there again and say thank you for helping us as Southern Baptists and providing the means for us to do the mission work the way we ought to do it. And that's get those lost kids in there. We bring some rough ones in there. Several years I was in charge of discipline. I finally got where I couldn't take that. But when you bring some of the kids of the world into a Christian organization, you got to stay on them 24 hours a day. And I hope you understand what I'm saying. But we get them to Jesus, and that's the starting point. And once they get saved and in one of our churches, then they began to grow and develop. Camp is a great ministry. Vacation Bible School, 7 years ago when I became DOM, only 2 of our churches did Vacation Bible School. We had less than 100 children in all of our VBSs. Through the years, I built a team to do VBS, and out of our 17 churches, I think it was last year, we had 14 of them did Vacation Bible School. We had hundreds of children that came to Vacation Bible School. It's a big deal. We have a block party trailer. We do all kinds of activities to get the kids coming. Listen, this is our future. It's in our kids. And we won't have to come to you in 20 years if we do our work right and ask Alabama pastors to come to Minnesota, because we're raising up our own pastors in our children's ministry. Precious faces, children having a great time, trusting the Lord, and it's just exciting to work with kids. Sometimes we don't have buildings, and we literally do our VBSs in shelters. Sometimes we pitch a tent and do the VBS in our camp. It's just a great time. Sometimes churches come up, and by the way, the association buys $800 to $900 worth of VBS props, and then we use those props all across the association. I tell the guys, don't be doing VBS the same week, because then you can't get those props. You're going to have to buy whatever little props you can afford, and that's not going to do the job. So spread your VBSs out to where you're not doing them the same work. Then that block party trailer goes from church to church, and all of those props are in the block party trailer. And that's been part of the success of Vacation Bible School in that area, is to use those things over and over again. Our disaster relief is a tremendous ministry. In Wadena, they had a tornado go through there, and now we're going back in to try to start a church. We did ministry there with our disaster relief. Church expansion, this is literally the building in Grand Rapids, and that's the Selma, Alabama team. All of you know about building buildings. It's tough. If we didn't have your help, we'd be in big trouble. I gotta go quick. Block party trailer. We have blow-ups, all kinds of stuff in that trailer, and kids just love it. Constituting churches. I wish I could tell you the whole story of Eagle's Nest. Such a blessing. We really pitch a party when we constitute these churches. This is the inside of Eagle's Nest. I pastor there, and I can't even see if that's me or something else there. But wonderful, wonderful church, and privileged to pastor there. Bridge of Grace Church is in another church plant that we have in North Branch. Let's keep going. This is the World Changer program we had in Duluth last year. Had over 100 kids come in from all over the world, the United States, and we worked on 7 homes and 1 church building. Let's go quickly through these. Bridge of Hope is a church we're trying to start out of that. We had our disaster relief unit in, did all the cooking for that. Let's keep going. Time is slipping. We had a block party, and that's the last slide I have. I want to thank you again. Started by thanking you, and I want to end by thanking you and making a real burden, a real call upon your heart to help us in missions. One of the things Faye and I do from time to time is to try to fund the work that goes on in Northwoods. The North American Mission Board is very gracious to pay us, and we live fine on what the North American Mission Board is paying us. But it still takes more money beyond that to do the mission work that goes on there. So a number of years ago, I was praying to the Lord and asking Him to somehow or another provide $500 a month, so that when a pastor got in trouble or a church got in trouble, or we wanted to do an outreach event someplace, I'd have the money to do that. And the Lord told me, well, why don't you ask some people to give you $1 a week? And I said, Lord, I can do that. I could ask for $1 a week, but I'd have to find 500 people to do that. How would I keep up with that? Because I like to kind of keep up. Long story short, He led me to ask Sunday school classes to pray for us every week, and I send in an email with 1 praise and 1 request. Very simple thing, takes less than a minute to read it. And then that Sunday school class prays for us, and then we put a Minnesota bank. So I think there's one right beside you. Would you stand up and hold that up so they can see it? She's going to kill me for making her stand up. And we put a Minnesota bank in the class, and so you get the email, one person, you pray for us, and then you pass that bank around, and everybody puts $1 in there, or a quarter, or whatever you have in your pocket. You know, God has blessed that little simple idea, and we have, on the average now, about $1,300 a month that comes in. But the bigger blessing is we feel we have 1,000 people praying for us. We're not going anyplace until you pray. The work's not going anywhere but down till we recruit sufficient people to stand and labor before the Lord in prayer. Our goal was to find 1,000 people that would pray for us every week. I am very thankful for the good work of Alabama Baptist, your director of missions. These guys are my heroes across the South. We literally are strengthened in Minnesota because of the work of these men in Alabama pushing to make sure our needs are met. I've found that finding 1,000 people to pray for us, and then a number of people to put $1 a week in the bank, has strengthened our work to where I can tell you it's on the incline. And I don't know if it's the $1 a week. I'm suspicious it's the prayer. I really believe it's the prayer. Forget the $1 a week. If I could get you to pray for us every week, that would be a great, great blessing. That's critical to our work. The dollars are very helpful, but the critical work is the praying, the standing with us, the interceding for the work that's going on. I would ask you to do that. I don't know, you Sunday school teachers that are represented in the auditorium, you may be the one to say, Brother Bob, I want one of those banks, and I want to get that email so I can pray with you and encourage our class to give $1 a week. I like the $1 a week because I don't think that gets in the way of anybody else's mission work. I don't think we do good when we do that. We've got to stop taking other mission dollars to support this mission. So by giving $1 a week, I think everybody else can continue doing what they're doing, and you can be a help to us by praying. I want to say one last thing, Brother Kenny, before we pray. You gave me permission to close the service the way I wanted to. I have a great burden on my heart that we are not calling our young people to consider the mission field. I have a great burden that we are not adequately challenging our young people to consider the ministry, whether it's pastoring or education or music or serving on the foreign field in one of the various ways that you can serve. So today, I would like us to close with a strong appeal for us to go to the Lord and to ask Him, maybe it's possible, maybe there's a chance that there's 1, 2, or 5, or 10 in the congregation this morning that's never considered. You may consider being an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer, and your public schools and most schools will encourage you to think about those fields. But they're not going to encourage you to think about serving as a missionary and becoming part of the greatest activity any human being could ever be involved with. And that's being a pastor of a church. And I don't know that God would call you, but thousands need to consider it for God to call the few that He wants. So I would want to say to you this morning, could we close? This is a mission emphasis Sunday. Could we close maybe by making an appeal that, especially our young people, would you go before the Lord and at least consider, maybe I one day, maybe, there's a possibility one day maybe I could serve as a pastor. I wouldn't resign being a pastor to be president of the United States. It is an unbelievable honor to be a pastor. I can't think of anything more exciting than being a missionary. Hard, difficult, days it'll take you low.